All right, what can we turn this side of the road junk into? Stay tuned to find out. And this is what we came up with. All right, I'm B from Our Dream, Our Purpose. And as you see, we've got some items here that could come out of any household there is out there. What I found this from is, as I'm looking for different things to scrap, I wanted to find things that just anybody could scrap, could tear down and melt, and has it in every house. I don't recommend going and grabbing your TV and your vacuum cleaners, anything like that. But on my way home from work, I'd seen a house for sale. It had sold, and they were throwing a lot of this stuff out. I stopped and asked if I could have a couple items, just so I could actually tear them down and see how much scrap I could get out of them. Vacuum cleaner itself, you're gonna get some copper out of the electric line, and the motor inside, there should be some copper in that. This little folding table, some of the brackets I just realized are jacked up on it. And it's aluminum though, the structure, so I'll drill a lot of the rivets out. We'll see how much aluminum we can get out of that. In TV, believe it or not, there's a lot more copper inside an old TV than what you would think. Copper / aluminum, we'll see what the wiring is. But I'll show you how to tear them down, and then we'll melt them into some little bars and see how it turns out. All right. As I tear them down, I'll bring you a little bit closer so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. Let's start with the table. We'll get it up here in the work area, tear it down, and go from there. All right. Let's get a little closer. Come on. Come on.
So most of this table was held together with rivets. There's a few screws, but a majority of it is actually rivets that I just drilling out the rivets and then able to pull everything apart. You'll see on the drill itself, it's building up with the ends of the rivets. Just left them on, no reason to take them off every time. But just going to take them apart and then cut the rails up a little later. As you can see, I've got a little magnetic bowl there. Any little pieces of metal, screws, things like that I'm throwing in there. Just something so it holds on to them and I can sort them later. Won't melt them obviously, but just something to where I can put everything to keep it out of the way, try to keep things cleaned up. But we'll go ahead and continue drilling. Again, there's a lot of rivets holding this together. Separated the wood there. And then just drilling all of these out. There's some end pieces, little plugs that holds the legs together. That's what you saw me trying to pull out there. But we'll just continue taking this apart and then move on to the next one.
All right, now let me get some of this cleaned up, scrap out some of the metal, get rid of some of the plastic. I'll show you what aluminum we got out of it, and then we'll go to the next item. Be right back. All right, we cleaned up the area. These right here were the bent pieces around the structure itself. Still a couple little rivets I need to drill out. I also do that on the vise as I'm warming up the forge. This is all the leg pieces. A little bit more aluminum than I thought. And these are some cross members and support pieces. So I'll probably cut these in smaller pieces while I'm grinding them off anyways, so I can get that puddling in the crucible itself. Once I get that, these I can just feed right into and they'll actually melt straight down into it. So we'll get this off the table, bring the vacuum cleaner up next, show you a tear down of that, and see what we can get out of it. All right? With this, before I bring you closer, I'm going to strip down all the basic stuff first. Try to get as much plastic off this as possible before we tear into the main part. The cord itself, we'll strip their outer coating off of it, and see what size the wires are. So if it's real small, it's tougher to peel, but we'll see. Put that out of the way. Getting down a little smaller. Let's get you to bring it a little closer. Come on.
As I'm tearing the vacuum cleaner apart, there's not a lot in it. Had the cord itself. We'll try stripping that down. But the only thing really inside is the motor itself. So I'm just trying to get all the plastic off, and right there's the only motor, only part left out of it.
All right, so got this motor out of the vacuum cleaner. There is some copper in there. This is aluminum. I started hitting it with the hammer, but we'll wait till we get over to the vise, and I'll actually use the vise to get the copper out of here. So I'll show you the rest of the tear down there. This is metal, plastic, and we got the cord, which is copper, inside. We'll see if it's too small, strip down, and go from there. A few wires, nothing major, but we will get something out of it. So let me get this cleaned up. We'll get to the TV. All right, so we're at the point where we're gonna tear the TV down. And so what I'm gonna do is actually spin the TV around. The majority of the screws are in the back, so I'll move the table out of the way, flip this around so you can see me take the back apart, cut the cord off, and then we'll lay it flat on top of this, get you a little closer view, and then start taking the stuff on the inside out, all right? Let's get it spun around, start showing you what we can do.
There's just a couple of screws that hold the back on itself. Then you just pry it apart. Anytime I pry it apart, I always find one or two. And then here I just laid it on its base. Gets us to everything we need, all the wires and everything that we're taking apart here. There's a big wire that goes all the way around the tube itself. Not really sure why or what it's called, but able to get that. It's typically copper. Pull that out. It's a lot there. And then we're trying to get this base off here, which is all copper.
All right, we got this torn apart mostly. I'll clean this up, explain some of the concerns you might have, and then we'll get to the final tearing down of all the copper and aluminum that we found in each of the projects. All right, be right back. All right, we got most of the junk out of the way. Anytime you see an old TV like that, you're gonna see a couple different things. You're gonna see circuit boards inside. Now, there's value in circuit boards, or older circuit boards. People take them and actually get gold and different things off of them chemically. I've not sold those. I have kept them, but so I have them. When I find somebody that can do something with them, I'll give them to them. But I won't do anything with those. Those out of the way. I've got a lot of wires. So with the wires, obviously all the little wires that are attached to it, I might or might not strip those down to real tiny. It takes a lot of effort. What you will see is a band all the way around. Most of the time it's actually copper. This one is copper. Sometimes aluminum painted copper, so you gotta watch for that. So make sure if you are doing some else, you are tearing things down, you're looking for that, especially in TVs I've found. And then there's the extension cord, the cord itself. These here, I don't know if you know what it's called, please comment in the message, put it in the comment below what it is. I call them the cones. This was on top of the TV itself, on the tube. And what you have to be careful with is, when I was doing it, I had a hammer close to it, I was doing a lot of different things, but I'd be very careful because it will bust. And there's a gas inside the tube itself, so you gotta be careful with that. When I took the top off of it, the very tip, it actually allowed the gas to escape. So I knew whenever I was hitting around it, there was no more gas in it, it was just glass. But what you'll see, a lot of times, this one was attached really well to the glass itself, kind of like an epoxy or something. What I'll do with this and this here is actually put it in a piece of cloth, hit it with the hammer, break everything else up and just get the copper away from it. This really looks like copper. This, I'll actually look into it more, but this to me looks like copper painted or aluminum painted. So be careful because I don't want to melt those together. So we'll go from there. So I'll probably get the stripper out, strip some of this down. I might show you a little bit of it, not going to show you all of it, but we'll get it prepared so we can actually melt it. We'll do the same with the vacuum cleaner, with the wires, and then when I'm tearing these down in the motor, I'll actually take it over to the vise. You'll get to see that. So let me get stripping some of these down and we'll see how it turns out.
So here I'm just using a wire stripper and I just feed it through. I don't try tearing them all apart until I get all of them stripped. And what the stripper does is actually just makes a crease in it. So I'll clear the end, put it in this vise and pull it. Sometimes I will use the blade, which you see here on the thicker ones, just to get a cleaner cut. But as it goes, just peeling that off. So that's what I'm doing here, is just taking each of the wires, putting them in there and stripping them down. Now I'm on the motor itself. The motor has some copper in it, so I'm just trying to take it apart to get all the copper out. When I'm grinding, I'm just cutting the metal. I'll try to cut it at specific spots so that I can then get the wire and unravel with the least amount of cuts through it. You'll see me by hand just unspooling this copper wire to get the copper out. We'll continue doing that. Here I'm just cutting some of those pieces up to make smaller pieces. The reason being is so I can get it in the crucible, as I mentioned, just to get some molted aluminum. The rest I'll melt solid.
All right, back a different day. Still continuing with this. Finished up tearing the motor apart. Got a little bit of aluminum off the motor itself. This is off the fan. And then the rest of this aluminum here is all from the table. Cut some of it up into small pieces. So we'll put this in the crucible to get a little molted aluminum at the bottom, and then we'll just feed these in and be able to melt those that way without having to cut them all down. Then we've got some copper here. This is off the TV. This is off the motor itself. Well, some of this is off the motor. That's off the TV. This is off the cord itself. Strip that down. This here is off the TV as well, but I'm pretty sure this is aluminum painted to look anodized, to look the way it does. But so we'll melt all the aluminum first, get some little bars out of it, and then we'll go to this, see if this melts, and then we'll go to the copper finally. So I've already got my crucible set up with my tank. Left it set up, so we'll go ahead and I'll clean a few things up, and then you'll see me come right back. We'll be lighting that up and then getting going. All right. We've got some of the smaller pieces in the crucible. Like mentioned, just want to get some smaller ones in here. Get it warmed up so it melts and creates a little puddle of molten aluminum in there, and then we'll be able to feed the other ones in. So we'll go ahead and set that in before I light it up. Go ahead and get her lit. Everyone lights it differently. What I do when I light it is I just get a little piece of paper. I'll drop it in the corner where the flame is. Right there. Just get a little bit.
Did someone say fire? Here I'd put some of the small pieces of aluminum in the crucible. I got it in a forge. It's actually warming and melting now. I'm going to add a few more pieces. I'll try to get the small ones as mentioned while I set up the area. You can see a little bit inside here now of it melting down. The aluminum doesn't take as long as obviously anything that takes a warmer temperature, but we'll get that, and then you can see I'm feeding some of the poles in, and it just melts right down in it. Without the molten aluminum in the bottom, it does take longer. And what I found with these were a little thinner, so they were actually melting pretty quick. But the problem was it was falling outside because I'm using a smaller crucible than I normally use. So I opened it up and started melting it that way. I had a little more control over it. So we'll just keep doing that until we get it finished up, and then we'll actually start our pour.
Something you're going to see him trying to do a little different is that right there. In the past, I've poured on the concrete all the time, which is work, but once in a while there are some spills. And when you spill things, it actually, what it does, the concrete, inside concrete is very porous, so it actually heats up the air inside the concrete and it could pop. I've been fortunate, it has not happened to me in the garage. It has happened outside the garage, but it has not happened to me inside the garage. But one subscriber actually noticed what I was doing and recommended me putting it on wood. And I elevated it because a different subscriber knew that I had problems with my depth perception. So I said, hey, try elevating it so it's closer to my eyesight so I can actually see it better. So we're going to try that as well. So let's go ahead and pour one bar. I got plenty in here, but I'm just going to pour one bar, and then we'll save the stuff that's inside to help melt the rest.
And as I've mentioned before, have it on a little elevated surface and on top of some plywood so it doesn't pour onto the concrete itself. And I'll explain that at the end, what that does. And that was a mention from a subscriber, so thank you.
And as I mentioned, plenty left inside. We'll go ahead and put it back in. Put some more aluminum in there, and we'll start up. And because it's got hot aluminum in there, we should be able to melt another bar or two, tube or two, pretty quick. And we'll give this enough time to dry. We'll get it up and try again.
Yes, I do often exaggerate the fire, but on this one, which was kind of comical, is we're actually dealing with ice as well. So fire and ice together in the same video, just trying to have a little fun with it. But sometimes I'll use water, sometimes I'll use ice to cool down the different metals. So in this case, just had some ice, we used it. So this was a little odd. There was a sticker on the last piece I put in there. It just took a little longer to melt, so it was catching on fire as I was pouring it. Didn't hurt anything. The debris itself that was not aluminum was inside, melted away. Just using tongs to put the aluminum bars on top of the ice. Dropped it in a little bit. Didn't plan the drop, but it happened. All right, we got the aluminum
Now we're going to put some copper in there. And let's see how it turns out. A little bit of the copper, not a lot. This is after I've cut it a little bit. I think it actually is copper. So we're gonna go ahead, throw this in, melt it. There's a little copper in there, but not a lot. We'll melt it down and see what we can get out of there. Not much in that one. And the one before it, I tried to separate copper. Somehow it looks like it got aluminum in it. Some of what I thought was copper wire might have been aluminum. More of a gold color. And it seems to be every time I go to do that. So we'll get that out, clean that up. Pretty much clean, but clean it up and then we'll talk a little bit about it. All right? Rub it. All right, we're done with our melt. And I'll show you what we got out of it. Remember, we went from a TV, a little table, and a vacuum cleaner. Tore it all apart, melted it down, and this is what we came up with. From an aluminum standpoint, we got about 2.5 pounds, 2 pounds, 8 ounces. Out of that, mainly that table, a little bit off the fan, off the motor itself. And then all the copper wire that I thought was all copper. And I said, remember I said, I thought was aluminum, but it was anodized. Nope, that was pure copper. So got about 8, 9 ounces out of the copper alone. Then what I thought was pure copper, we've got about almost a pound out of this. It's a copper and aluminum combination, I would assume. I do want to get a tip machine and test a lot of what I have just to see what the mixture is and go from there. But again, they didn't, the plastic we were able to scrap out or throw away, recycle. But a majority of the metal did not have to get thrown away. We're able to melt a lot of it, so we're really recycling. Got a little bit out of it. You can see how much you get out of those items. Is it worth it? I'll leave it up to you. Definitely thought we were going to get more copper out of the deal, not as much as what I had thought. Aluminum didn't do too bad, but this is what it turned out to be. I hope you enjoyed it. What you also saw too, I want to throw out there is a couple different things. I elevated what I was pouring. It came from a fan just saying, hey, if you have trouble pouring, get it a little more eye level, steadier. And it's actually helping me out. I've done it a few times. What I also did is put a piece of wood down. So if the aluminum or copper melt pours over, instead of it getting on the concrete, it gets on the wood. It'll burn the wood for sure, but that's okay. It won't heat the concrete up. And the concern about heating the concrete up is there's air pockets in the concrete itself. It'll heat that up to a gas and it'll explode. So little explosions, but you don't want to get hurt. It's very, you can be safe with it, so you need to do whatever you can. So again, somebody mentioned it, I'm listening, so any comments you guys have, please leave them. Anything you want to see me tear down and melt, leave it in the comments as well. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll keep putting them out. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.